Hey guys, welcome to Ringsiders. Jamie here, joined as always by Callum. How are you doing, Callum?
Fantastic, Jamie. Thank you.
Super duper. And we have a very special guest today. I'm going to use the word because he's a legend, Mr. Jimmy Jacobs. How are you, sir?
Legend. That's a mighty big word, but I appreciate at least the perception of that. That's nice. It's always flattering.
We've been discussing this, actually. We've spoken to a few people recently, and this is one of the interviews where I'm actually quite nervous for it because you're someone I've watched since 2004. So to be interviewing you now is quite cool. I'll admit, as a fan, it's cool to be talking to you. So we are thankful to have you with us here today.
Well, great. I appreciate that. Nothing to be nervous about. I'm just me. You. We're all just unique points of consciousness in this infinite awareness. So it's all right. We're all just the same thing.
I saw him a few hours ago, and you should have seen the nerves. Honestly, he was like,
all right.
Jimmy Jacobs. He was so nervous. He really was. But yeah, we are huge fans, and I know. I mean, we'll start off straight away. Like, how have you been with lockdown? Have you how are you coping? Keeping busy?
Fantastic, man. The last 4 months or so have been so transformative for me, more transformative than any time in my life. I moved down to, I was in Chicago for a couple of years. I moved down to Phoenix into the desert here back in the middle of March, like right when all this stuff went down. Like I moved down here, then IKEA shut down the next day, so I couldn't get furniture like I wanted to. And so I've just been down here by myself with my cat for 4 months. And, you know, when you're alone, you have a couple choices. You have the choice to, well, I can, you know, sit here and sort of cave into myself, and I can watch, Jersey Shore reruns all day, or I can use this time to connect with others, connect with myself, and do work, and just grow as a person and grow in your perception of reality, which is what I've been fortunate enough to do, and had some very unique experiences in the last 4 months. So it's been brilliant.
Well, we've spoken to a few other Impact talents over the last couple of months during lockdown. One of them was Ace Austin. And we asked him how he was doing with lockdown. And at the time, we were doing a video interview, and he was just floating on an inflatable in his pool while doing the interview, drinking a beer. And I was like, so it's going pretty well for you then? He's like, yeah, it's great. So it's good to know that the Impact talents, like most of the ones we've spoken to, have had a very positive experience over lockdown. And some people have been, some other companies have been quite frustrated that they haven't been able to wrestle, understandably. But it seems like with Impact, they've been handling it very well. And how do you feel like it's been from a business point of view with how Impact's handled the lockdown?
Well, I mean, you have to make the best out of any situation. And that doesn't just go for this, that goes for life. So I think Impact has done a very good job in providing the content we need to for the television to keep the show going, to still paying the performers, while also being in mind, being aware of what's going on. So I've been in the lab here. If I turn my computer around, my wall just looks like a crazy person with all these sticky notes, and it looks like I'm some big crazy
conspiracy theorist.
Well, I am, but we're taping again coming up here pretty soon. So we've been able to do that. That's gotten me out of the house a couple times, flying from here to Nashville to shoot.
So how do you feel like the company overall with the talent? How do you think they've adapted to the no crowd environment? Because obviously it's different for every performer. Some have adapted to it. Some thrive off the crowd. Do you feel like, in general, the locker room has adapted well to it?
I think, look, it's hard because professional wrestling is so much of it has to do with the reaction of the crowd. I mean, that's so much of it. And we've seen, certainly on Raw and SmackDown, and I think on Wednesday nights too, the ratings have gone down. They have suffered because it's like you take a crowd away. It's like, what is Rock and Hogan, when they stare face to face? You take the crowd away. You take the crowd away. It's just like two guys looking at each other. Yeah. Like, come on, you have to do something. So certainly it does take away from the vibe. But I think, you know, in today's environment, with the level of performance, so much of it does have to do with the sort of action in the ring. We have a lot of very talented in-ring performers. So I think our fans are still able to watch our product and enjoy the in-ring action. And it's also given us, you know, from the creative side of things, to look at new avenues. And I see WWE is trying to do this as well. I don't really watch it, but I saw something they're doing like Raw Underground or
Fight Club.
Okay, yeah, and that's cool. It's like it's forcing you to think outside the box. And you know, we were able to shoot this Wrestle House, which is like a reality show of like 12 wrestlers trapped in a house together, and when they get in conflicts, they have to have a match to solve these conflicts. And it was just a different presentation of professional wrestling, given the tools that we have. But I think it's an experiment, but I think it's been a fun experiment, and mostly positive feedback on that.
Yeah, I was catching up with Impact last night, and I've been saying for weeks and weeks and months, and Callum will back me up. Me personally, I think Impact have the best product out there at the moment. Yeah. People are going on about NXT and AEW, rightfully so. But for me, I think Impact has been the standout product for the entire year. And again, last night, I was catching up last night, and Wrestle House. I was in absolute stitches. I was like, this is fantastic. And then Tommy Dreamer just comes out in this big white suit. Yeah. Like, this is incredible. I mean, it really is. It is the best products out there at the moment. How did Wrestle House come about then? What was that? Whose idea was that? Was that a Jimmy Jacobs idea, or?
I wish I could take full credit for it, but actually it was initially Rosemary's idea. When we were trying to figure out what to do, you know, we didn't know if we were going to have shows. You know, if you look back in, you know, March and April, the world's very, very uncertain then. And Rosemary had an idea just about, you know, some story and, you know, something they could do in some match or something. I was like, yeah, but do you have any like real out of the box ideas? And she goes, well, she initially called it Quarantine, where like, yeah, like 10, 12 wrestlers end up getting quarantined in a house together. And she had that idea back in like April or March, and I really liked it. So it took a little bit of time to hammer it out and work out the kinks and see how we wanted to do it and if we wanted to do it and how to present it. And I'm glad we got to pull it off. So it was kind of her initial idea, and you know, Robert Evans, who I worked with, you know, did stuff as R.D. Evans in Ring of Honor and was a writer in WWE that famously quit in Gorilla position during the Hall of Fame ceremony, whatever it was in 2008, 19 maybe. He works for Impact now, and he took the sort of lead in writing it, and he's a really talented writer. So the thing about Wrestle House is I think it gets better the more you watch it, because it's very clever writing and it's good storytelling. And this week will feed off of the next week to the next week to the next week, and all these bits that sort of build on top of each other and clever payoffs. So it was really a team effort, but I'm happy so far with how it's turned out.
It's quite meta in the way it's presented, isn't it? Like there's little jokes which, if you are like a diehard fan, you're going to pick up on. Even if you're not, it's still funny. Like when Tommy Dreamer, somebody said, oh, no way, Jose. And Tommy Dreamer just goes, we haven't signed him. I was in tears. So good.
I loved it. I've got obviously, we'll talk WWE soon, but I've got to ask you, mentioning Evans, was it true that he got fired because he mentioned Vince, or they mentioned Vince on screen?
It's not my story to tell, but he did not get fired. He quit. He quit. Right. In the middle. I think he did the thing that everybody who's ever worked there has dreamed about doing, and that's just in Gorilla going to Vince, going, "Yeah, I quit," and he did it. So, God bless him. Man.
Fair play to him. Yeah.
Right. Well, I know where Callum wants to go, so I'm going to bring it in and ask you straight away. We've got to ask you about the IWA Mid-South, because every time we mention that, Callum's face lights up. So I'll let Callum tell you.
So being from the UK, obviously our first exposure to wrestling is usually WWE. And I didn't really know of anything outside of that for many years. And then I found Ring of Honor and IWA MidSouth. And there was people like Josh Abercrombie, Tyler Black, Jimmy Jacobs. And it blew my mind that there was a different product outside of WWE. So it's kind of why I've always had like a bit of a soft spot for the American Indies, is because it was the first thing I watched other than WWE. And like going back to those days when you were in IWA MidSouth and like coming in with guys like, I believe it was Delirious and stuff like that. How have the indies changed from back then to what they are now? Do you feel like the indies have evolved? Do you feel like I use the term now old school indies to refer to like early Ring of Honor, which is a weird concept in itself because indies have always seemed so modern, but you do have like that old school indie now. And do you feel like they have come a long way in that time?
I mean, absolutely, the independent scene has evolved. Back in 2003, 2004, me and Alex Shelley would hop in a car and drive 6 hours together to get 30 or 40 bucks just to try to make a name for ourselves. And not that isn't going on today, because of course it is. But when I got fired from WWE in 2017, I had no idea what I was walking back into as far as independent wrestling, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that the state of independent wrestling was so strong, and there's a lot of there's like real money to be made. Guys are actually like making like real livings just wrestling in this town and that town, and the audiences have gone up, and the money has gone up, and certainly the level of performance has gone up. Well, it's evolved. Certainly, I think it's gone up. I think that there's so many. That was one thing in 2017 when it came back. I was, holy crap! There's so many talented individuals here. There's so many talented performers. Guys that I could barely keep up with the guys back in 04 and 05. And then 2017, I had gotten worse and they had gotten better. The independents definitely have evolved. Hey, there's your cat. The independents have definitely evolved, and it's interesting because it was really like in my head it was guys like CM Punk and Chris Hero and Colt Cabana that really were the pioneers of the new independent wrestlers. Now you can look back a little before then and talk about guys like Don Montoya and Reckless Youth and Mike Quackenbush as well, who sort of were East Coast guys that would come on the Midwest a little bit. But for my money, Cabana and Punk really were the guys that just were like, all right, we're going to wrestle here, we're going to wrestle here and here and here and here and here and here and here. And that was the model that Alex Shelley and I then took, and then Delirious and Matt Sydal. And then pretty soon, you fast forward a few years and you got guys like, Seth Rollins, and he was one of the first guys that, he grew up watching early Ring of Honor and IWA MidSouth. And so then you started getting guys that were fans of the style that we were sort of perpetuating in the early mid 2000s, and then that brought in a whole new generation and a new generation. So it evolves because these guys are watching these guys who are then watching these guys, and it's fun.
It's cool, isn't it? Because like you used to have the territories, and that became really the indies. Once the territories were bought up, you had the indies which were left, and nowadays it's like you've got your Impact, your WE, your AEW, and even your smaller indies are like, it's even hard to use the term indie now for them, because like Game Changer Wrestling, for example, they've got a streaming service. They're on Fight TV. So it's like, what do you class independent as now? Because there's these companies that have distribution to millions of people, and they've got very good loyal fan bases. So it's like, what is an independent has changed as well. Like it used to just be like your gymnasiums, for example, and you'd maybe have like 50 to 100 people. But now with GCW, you're going to get maybe, well, pre-pandemic, you'd maybe be getting 400 people per show. So they're always selling out. So what classes as an independent in 2020?
Yeah, well, it's the thing is the entire business has changed. When I look back at 2005, when I first started like going around WWE, and I did a couple like, job matches for them. The idea of being an independent wrestler and then that, earning you a job in WWE was just, it was unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
CM Punk did it really, and there was Paul London before him, but I think CM Punk in my mind again was sort of this pioneer, the first guy to me that like really dominated the independent scene, and because of that got on WWE's radar. When you talk about what happened after ECW and WCW closed, you have these kind of like these few years here where the independents are rebuilding off of the ashes of everything that sort of died. And so it was just unheard of, and then Punk did it in 05, then a couple other people followed suit. But there was this huge leap. There was this huge leap between being an independent wrestler was not looked at as in your favor. It was, you had that against you. It was like, yeah, I mean, but he's an independent wrestler. He's gonna have his own ideas and his own way of doing things, and he thinks CM Punk might be the king of the indies, but he'll never be anything here.
Yeah.
So it's changed so much. When you talk about what's an independent, well, it went from being WWE and everything else to now you can get over here, and you can get over here, and get over here, and then WWE even bleeds into the independents. It's like they were doing all that stuff with Evolve, and I don't know if that's still going on or this thing with Evolve is done, but you have guys in WWE and NXT who are working in the indies, indie guys who are working in WWE, and guys who can go from. So it's just it's really much more unified than it ever has been. The journey to the top is much more straightforward than it was before.
I think when you say like journey to the top, what the top is has changed as well. It doesn't have to just be WWE anymore. It can be your top might be going to New Japan. It might be wrestling AEW or Impact. And just it used to be before like, oh, well, he never made it to WWE, so he never reached the top. And I think that's an insult to some people's careers, really, because they might not want to wrestle for WWE, and they might have just as good careers in other companies. So I think now all these companies are doing so well, it's not looked at as like, oh, well, you didn't go to WWE, you didn't make it. It's you just made it somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different places to make money. I mean, again, I'm going to bring up, I maybe it's just because we're all from the Midwest, and this was the guys I sort of worked with and followed their suit. But I'm going to look at Colt Cabana, who was the first guy on the independents in my mind to really harness the business of independent wrestling. And I mean, he as an independent wrestler, he was making more money than some of the guys in WWE, which was just unheard of at the time. And now people followed his model of merchandising and branding. And, there are now different companies. There's AEW. And part of it has to, WWE started to validate people's experiences who are outside of WWE. Again, before that was sort of like looked down upon. And now, since Triple H took over, developmental in 2012, and he really started giving credence to, people who are trainers at the Performance Center who never had runs in WWE, which was like unheard of before. So yeah, you don't have to go to WWE to make a lot of money. You don't have to go to WWE to be successful. You don't have to, but you can, and there's all these options, and it's good. I mean, other than all the shutdowns and things like that because of the, it's a great time to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah, and as a fan too. I mean, if it's good for the wrestlers, chances are it's good for the fans too. Because right now, as fans, we've never felt so spoiled for choice, really. There's so much good wrestling out there. If you went back maybe 5 to 10 years, you didn't have that choice. You had your TNA still, obviously, and you had Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor 10 years ago was my favorite product of any era. But that was it. You had WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, and now you've got so much choice. Like there's wrestling companies in every single city. Even in the UK, there's now wrestling in every city, if not more than one promotion.
Yeah,
and it's such an exciting time to be. Yeah, such a good time to be a fan. But going let's get into a little bit of a WWE talk while we're at it. I found it interesting because it was at WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, and I was in the queue for Monday Night Raw, and you walked past, and I got a picture of you, of the guardrail, and my friend got a picture too. And after we got a picture, it was like, who's that? And I went, Jimmy Jacobs. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, it's Jacobs. He wasn't familiar with independent names or anything. And my friend came back, who was just gone to get some food. And I was like, we've just met Jimmy Jacobs. And he was like, no, you haven't. So I showed him the picture, and he was so jealous. And to this day, he's still so jealous. Even about this interview, he was like, get out. You're not interviewing him. So that's a little anecdote there. But that night as well, I found it cool that you're now working for WWE as a writer. And unfortunately, that did come to an end. And it was the picture seen around the world. Is that something, like, how did that happen? Like, you know which picture I mean.
Yeah, so yeah. I wouldn't say unfortunately at all. Getting fired from WWE was such a gift to me. I was not, the last probably 6 months I was there, the job had stopped being a good fit for me, and I really stopped enjoying myself. But I was really too scared to do anything about it. That's what happens in life a lot. We let fear control us. And you start telling yourself these stories about, like, yeah, but what else would I do? I've worked my whole life to get here. It's like, what's on the other side? Does Jimmy Jacobs even still exist? I mean, he's been dead for 2.5 years. Like, can I be a wrestler? Do I go do something else? Like, what else is there once you've worked your whole life to get one place?
Yeah.
And that fear was, it trapped me. And when I got fired, it was such a relief, and it was so exhilarating to go, whew, now I have no idea where my next paycheck comes from. Awesome. Yeah. And it turned out it was fine. It turned out it was like there was nothing to fear. There was nothing to worry about. It was about a month after I got fired. I was having the best time in my career, because that was a fun 15 minutes. It was like it got as much publicity as anything I have in my career, and so I was more in demand than ever. It was a fun short few months there, and I was having the time of my life. And I go, man, how long would I have stayed in WWE if they hadn't fired me? I would have stayed there forever. I would have been miserable there for another 10 years because I would have been too scared to do anything about it. It was such a valuable lesson to go, sometimes you have to make a decision. Sometimes you have to just, the thing you're scared of doing is the thing you probably need to do. The thing you're holding on to the most is probably the thing you need to let go. And so it was such a gift, man. And when I went outside and took that picture with first I just went to see the Young Bucks, just see my friends. And then just on the way out, I was like, hey guys, let's take a picture together. And I wasn't going to do anything with it. And then I was in Gorilla, and I was like, what? Fuck it. And I did it like, maybe it was a rebellious kid acting out. I don't exactly know, but it's certainly at that point I was over existing in a world where I was just trying to not get fired, because that becomes the status quo there. You have so many people there because of the way it's run, and then people's perception of the way it's run, that are just trying to not get fired. And that's, first of all, it's not a fun way to live, and it's not a great way to make either, if you're just trying to do the idea that doesn't get you yelled at.
Yeah.
So I was over existing in that world. So I don't think I did it to get fired, but I also didn't, if I would have, I knew somebody was going to get mad about it.
Of course.
I didn't think they would fire me over it. But when they did, it was like, great, today's the day. Awesome. What a time.
I remember seeing it on Instagram and thinking, I'm sure it was on Instagram, and thinking, that's risky. I like it because it, like you said, it was rebellious. And as a fan, that's cool to see. It's, Jimmy Jacobs taking a picture of the Elite. That's cool. And I just remember thinking in the back of my head, that's, something's going to happen with that. And when like you said, when you got fired, and you felt liberated and free. And I'm not one for signs or anything, but it sounds like that was a big sign for you. Like, you doing that has led to where you are now, and you're so much happier and free to do what you want. That's a sign right there that was what you needed to do.
Of course, once you start to see what's going on here, of course, we're at constant communion with the universe, and things happen in our lives to learn lessons and to move on. And WWE was a great experience. It was time to move on. The universe did me the favor of going, like, great, you got that. You went there to do what you needed to do, and now you can go play this game somewhere else and have an experience somewhere else. So everything. I mean, I can look back at anything, these things we think that are negative in life. We give we put these labels on it, like, oh, this is negative, and things that are negative it's just two sides of different poles, right? It's just two different poles. And what the negative really does is it pushes you to move forward. So the things in your life you go, oh, this is awful. It's like, no, that's a thing for you to overcome. That's actually a gift from the universe. I can look back at 2017 and go, oh, the woman I love broke up with me. Then I went to rehab. Then I get fired from my dream job. And I look back at 2017 and I go, yes, that was the year. That was the year that this stuff was put in front of me for me to deal with. Because we live these patterns in our life, like we have this, let's say, suffering in our life, or our lives are just not optimal because this thing keeps happening. We keep feeling like this, and this thing keeps happening. And we tend not to learn the lesson when it's small. Right? If you just have, you always get in a fight with your girlfriend, and it's just one fight and the next fight and the next fight, and it's really unpleasant, but you just don't do anything about it because it's unpleasant, but not that unpleasant, and whatever. Sometimes when you don't learn those lessons, life, the universe hits you in the face and says, wake up. This is the lesson to learn. Now you're going to lose this. And you're going to lose this, and you're going to lose this. And now once you've lost everything, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep doing the same thing you've been doing that's led you down this road? Or are you going to take this time to wake up after you've been hit in the face and say, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe there's something else I can be doing. So these things are gifts. It's all about how you look at things. And so whatever negative thing is going on in your life right now, think about it, take a look at it, and go, what am I supposed to be learning from this? How do I accept what's going on to then grow my perception, grow my perspective, to find peace in the world.
Have you ever thought about being a motivational speaker? Because I'm feeling pumped now. Like, I feel like you just cut the promo of the year on Ringsiders Wrestling. So.
This is the stuff I'm passionate about now. Wrestling plays a very different role in my life now than it used to. Now it's a job and I enjoy doing it. And there's way worse ways to make money. But what I'm passionate about is the journey that I've been on the last three plus years. Kind of this post rehab and sort of looking at my life and going, what is this? Like, how should I be living? What is life? What's the optimal way to live it? Who am I? What am I? And that journey is way more exciting to me than the journey of, because this journey is one where you find out, oh, yes, there is this external journey you go on, but also the real journey is when you start to go inside, and that's you find way more there than anywhere else, and that's exciting to me.
I hope as well. I mean, going back to WWE, do you think we'll ever get to the point where, God forbid, obviously Vince steps down or whatever, where WWE will start maybe working with other companies? I know I heard Jericho a while back saying he wants to see all the companies work together for the betterment of wrestling. Do you think maybe with Triple H at the helm that might happen down the road? You might see WWE work with AEW and Impact, and
Well, you're already
more open.
You're already there to an extent. I mean, again, things changed dramatically and drastically, and I'll give it to Triple H. You know, when he took over the developmental in 2012 and his vision with the Performance Center, and then what NXT ended up becoming. You know, he saw what was popular on the independents. He saw what Ring of Honor was, and he's like, oh, I can take that, and use the money we have to make that even better. And so he's the guy that saw, punk rock and decided to make Hot Topic. And he's brilliant for doing that, and seeing that, guys who were popular on the independents can come and play in the WWE land and also get over too. And so he has extended, they do, NXT does work with, they Evolve and, different companies I know in England and WXW in Germany. And so they do have relationships, which is really good. The thing when you're doing stuff with WWE though, I think the thing is always going to be that they just want to have the upper hand, right? Yeah. Triple H, had a lot of opinions on the Young Bucks the day that I took that picture with them. He had a lot of opinions, but as soon as the Young Bucks were free agents, you better bet he was knocking down their door, because he's a smart man and he knows those guys are money makers.
He's a businessman, yeah.
So it's like, here's the thing. So it's like, of course we want to work with you as long as we're calling the shots, and maybe two rights. They're the big dogs in town, and maybe at some point they're in a circumstance where they're desperate enough to play even footing with somebody. I don't know. It seems far-fetched, but at some point the business could be down enough. Vince brought in ECW back in years ago because they were so desperate at that time for something. And so if the ratings slip or the TV, the money, if that starts to go, you might see some radical changes. But I do think Triple H has been very smart in working with a lot of smaller companies, as feeder systems for NXT.
Yeah, do you feel like Triple H almost looks at it from a fan's perspective? Because I know he's a fan like all of us. Do you think sometimes he looks at it from the fan point of view?
No. I mean, I think he tried to. I'm sure we all try to put ourselves in the audience seat, but we're very far removed from that, especially if you're somebody like Triple H, who's been doing this for years and years and years and years and years in the system he's in. So he just has his preferences, and he has what he thinks will work and what he thinks is good, and he goes with that. And a lot of times he's right, and he's done an amazing job with NXT. I think Hunter sees things as from business side of things. He's a smart guy, man. I like him. I like him a lot in a lot of ways. Didn't always see eye to eye with him, but he's a very smart guy. And if he takes over the company when Vince, if the old man ever goes, I think it'll be in mostly good hands.
Vince,
you know that's never going to happen. Me and Callum have had this discussion before. Vince McMahon will never die.
Vince said in an interview, Vince McMahon will never die, and you know what? I believe him.
Yeah, well, he.
I've got no reason to think he will.
His mom's still alive. He would visit his mom when we were in every time, so she's still kicking it.
But yeah,
is it true? Sorry, Kat. Is it true that he literally sleeps 2 hours a day?
Is it true? You broke up. Is it true he sleeps?
Is it true you hear the rumors that Vince literally sleeps 2 hours a day? Is that true?
I never followed Vince around all day.
He wasn't
when we had to come up with ideas for, all the writers had to come up with some ideas for the WWE Network. I said, just give me 24 hours with Vince McMahon. I want to watch that. I think every fan would want to watch that.
A live stream of Vince McMahon would up the network subscriptions tenfold. If you just got to observe what Vince does on a daily basis.
He's a character, man. He's a character.
Yeah.
Everything you've heard about Vince is true and more, man. He's a legend.
I've never wanted someone to come out with a book so much. I would read the hell out of a Vince McMahon biography. That would be incredible.
Got like one interview with, I think it's like Playboy magazine, and it's super weird, man. It's like, it's interesting, but it's super weird. Yeah, he's an interesting character for sure.
And you kind of understand why he has that mentality when you read that interview. You're like, yeah, okay, there's a lot happened. I can kind of see why he is the way he is. And he is an interesting character. And I think no matter what happened with yourself and WWE, it must be cool in some aspect to think, I worked with Vince McMahon. Like, that's pretty cool.
Certainly the 13-year-old me, who then was sitting up in Vince's office, with his big dinosaur head on the wall, and you were going over stuff. I mean, yeah, there was an aspect of that was cool, and yeah, I've got no bitterness towards the company. It's played such an important role just in my life and where I am now, and I couldn't have done it without working for WWE and for Vince. Despite I didn't like working for Vince. He was not a pleasurable guy for me to work with. I don't think he understood me, and I think he always thought I was a bit eccentric, which yeah, maybe. He's like, it's like the knock on the writing team.
I think a lot of people would class Vince McMahon as eccentric.
Yes. Well, there could only be one peacock in the room. So
true.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever sneeze around him though? That's the question.
I had heard all these stories about don't sneeze in front of him. So I learned you can stuff a sneeze if you got enough pressure. I remember I was in a room with him, like a small room, and I was like, kept it in. And then one time, so the first time I saw somebody sneeze in front of him, it was Triple H. You always hear this rumors about sneezing, and Hunter was like down the table from him, so maybe like 6 feet away. And Hunter sneezes, and Vince just goes, "Oh God." And then he pulls down this like invisible shield or something to shield him from the germs. It's like, oh God, and shield. And so then, like, a year, 2 years later, it was towards the end of my time there. I was in the production meeting, and I'm sitting, a few tables down. I'm sitting next to Adam Pearce, and I'm like, 15 feet away from Vince. And I sneezed, and I tried to stuff it. It didn't come out that much, and Vince just like, God, Adam, you better put your shield down. And I just died. Like,
I'm doing that from now on. That's brilliant. I love that.
Gotta pull it down. Yeah, protect yourself from the germs through the air.
Vince was ahead of his time. Like,
he's behind his time. Germs don't make you sick. It's just a.
But speaking of the changes that have happened in the industry recently due to the pandemic, we've seen a rise in cinematic elements to wrestling, which I think is incredible because I love cinematic wrestling, and I'd love wrestling to be hokey. I like the whole hokey side to wrestling, and we're speaking to someone you'll be familiar with, Marek Brave, and he had a lot to say about the cinematic style and thinks it's the best thing that's happened to wrestling, especially during the pandemic, because it's made people and forced companies to do something different and adapt to like you said before, the tool set that they've been given. So you've got a limited roster, limited venues you can use. What can you do? And cinematic is kind of like with the Boneyard match, for example, and Wrestle House. I'll class that as cinematic because it's not in ring. So I think it's one of the best things that's happened in wrestling. If I'm honest with you, I think we're seeing so much more creativity from performers and seeing them do things that they might not be comfortable with. And I think it's just been great in general. What are your thoughts on the cinematic style in 2020?
Absolutely, man. And like, I think we all have to give a tip of the hat, at least in my mind, to Matt Hardy, This was, I mean, to me, this is Matt Hardy's thing. I mean, the broken mat, and correct me if I'm wrong, and this is just, again, my perception of it. The broken mat character and everything they did subsequently was, to me, the first like real cinematic presentation in professional wrestling. And I remember when I first saw this broken mat stuff, I was like, geez, what is this? I remember watching it and going like, God, this is why WWE has writers, guys. But then it's like, by the time Final Deletion came out, it was like Christmas morning. It was like, guys, Final Deletion is here. And dude, good for him. I love Matt, and I think he's brilliant. He's in so much credit. Got to give him so much credit. And so he really laid the groundwork for the cinematic and preposterous cinematic stuff too in wrestling. And once he left Impact Wrestling, we kept going with it because I think we saw the value of it, of going into the undead realm and having people fight through the bowels of hell, and whatever we could do, cinematic fights in the parking lot or in the woods, because at that point that wasn't something that WWE would touch. And now times have changed, and I know that Boneyard match, I didn't see it, but a lot of people had good things to say about it. It was very complimentary. And so I think it's the way forward, man. There's only so much you can do inside of a ring. It's like you can change moves, you can change the characters, but it's like at the end of the day, it's two guys wrestling to be the best or fighting because they don't like each other. And that's kind of, you try, as a writer, you try to find a lot of different ways to like to spice that up. But at the end of the day, it's like, these guys don't like each other, they're gonna fight.
Well, there's only two places it works, isn't there? That kind of style only works in either movies or wrestling. Like you couldn't do cinematic NFL. You know what I mean? It has to just wrestling is so diverse that you can do the serious wrestling, the chain wrestling, and then on the same show you have the Ultimate Deletion, and it's fine because it's wrestling.
And fans, like, it wasn't a given that it was going to work, right? It wasn't obvious. And to some fans it didn't when Matt was doing this stuff, and some fans still didn't like some of the stuff that we did, or I'm sure they're critics of the Boneyard match or something. But the boundaries in which we have the rules of contract, I'll call the rules of contract, of the contract of suspension of disbelief, right? The rules in which we write our show, present our show to the audience. Like, everybody knows it's not real, but the audience agrees to suspend their disbelief in return that we don't insult their intelligence because we write our show based on a certain set of rules, right? I'll date myself, but if you're watching the show ER, in ER, you can't heal somebody through magic, but in Harry Potter, you can. And one show isn't better than the other. It's just there are different rules. And so one thing works in one universe and one thing works in another universe. So what wrestling has, it was a certain set of rules 100 years ago where everything was supposed to look like a real fight. And then that became kind of boring. So the rules sort of started moving a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then they move more and more and more, and you can look back at the 1980s and say, well, some people go like, oh, this stuff looks so phony now. It's like, it looked phony back in the 80s. It's fine. It's basically always looked phony. It's just different sort of set of rules. But as the show of pro wrestling progresses and the audience sort of gets to vote on what they accept in this set of rules of the contract suspension of disbelief, and it seems like they've accepted cinematic things, and they've accepted, they accept the Undertaker shoots lightning. That's okay. So it's like, when does wrestling go too far? Whenever go by tuning out and going, okay, this isn't for us. But as long as they say, hey, this is for us, I like this Boneyard match, I like the Wrestle House, I like Final Deletion, it'll keep going. And I think it's great. I think it's fun to play outside the box.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think it's just great to see people doing something different, and the characters you wouldn't usually expect to see in these cinematic matches, like John Cena being a parody of himself in the Firefly Funhouse, for example, was very cool as a fan to see, like John Cena mocking himself. And I just think it's something that I hope sticks around afterwards in Impact, in WWE, AEW, everywhere. I think it's just something. Well, if there's a silver lining to this pandemic, I think that's one of them for wrestling.
There's no going back, man. I think people are seeing the benefits of coloring outside the lines, and pretty soon the canvas in which we can paint with is going to it's expanding, and it's expanding more and more. Hats off to Matt Hardy.
Speaking of going forwards, though, I'd like to focus a little bit more on Impact. And with Impact, like, having a bit of a resurgence recently, they've been absolutely killing it for a few years, but I don't feel like it's always been obvious to a lot of fans, because I feel like a lot of what they've done has gone underneath the radar. And that's not a discredit to Impact. It's just there's been a lot going on in wrestling. And the product has always been good. But now you've got, like, people coming in and making a bit of a splash in Impact, and you've got some older talent coming back, like the Machine Guns, for example, which I marked the hell out for. And, that was incredible seeing them come back. And I feel like they're getting a lot more eyes on them. And what do you feel like Impact's going to do going forwards to make sure they keep that momentum going and keep those viewers watching?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question. I think Slammiversary had more buzz of any show for Impact since I've been there in almost 3 years. And 2000, came there at the end of 2017, and really from that time moving forward, in 2018 it was really a rebuilding period. TNA had such damage to the brand that a lot of the goal was just, especially in the first year, was like, let's just make this a show that's not embarrassing to watch, that doesn't insult your intelligence, that you can follow along with, and you can go, and you don't feel bad about what you just watched, and you feel good about it, and you feel like you promote something and you pay it off. You don't have a bunch of screw finishes, all that sort of stuff that TNA was known for. And through the last couple of years, I think we've really done a good job, and maybe it's just because I'm on the writing team, but I think we've done a good job with telling stories. And having this whole new influx of talent between the Machine Guns and the Good Brothers and Eric Young, and EC3 is hanging around, and Heath is there trying to get a job. And I think it's been great, and hopefully people who tuned in for the first time in a long time, which I think that was a lot of people who watched Slammiversary, it was the first time they watched the product in a long time. Hopefully they stick around with our storytelling and with our athletes, and what we offer. I think what Impact offers is the best. Certainly there's great performers, but certainly I think what we do is we give a little bit of everything, and we have really good storytelling, like week to week. Like WWE, it's like, what happened this week doesn't matter what happens next week. It doesn't matter what happens next week.
Find it hard to get invested, don't you? Not knowing if you stick with something.
If you want to watch a weekly show and see stories moving forward, I think Impact has that. We have a diverse, we've got a lot of different stuff we do and a lot of different kind of stories. You can go into the streets, go into hell, go into the ring, wrestling feuds, blood feuds, all that sort of stuff. You'll see it on our show. So, I think that's what we have going for us.
And then we spoke to the Good Brothers last week, and they give a lot of praise to Scott D'Amore and Don Callis. What's it like being working with those two? I mean, everything I hear is nothing but praise for those guys, the way they've come in and really helped out.
Yeah, I mean, look, Scott was the one that brought me into Impact. He took it over right before I came in there, and I've known him for probably almost 20 years now. And I think for the first time, I don't know, I wasn't in TNA before this, but you have an office that cares about the product, cares about the talent. It's not just about getting themselves over, and really listens to the talent. And I think it's a fun place. I think if they want to come and play, it's a good place to play. It's a good place to go and get to tell stories and have some creative freedom. And you're going to be on the show every week. Even we try to make sure we have, even the guys at the bottom of the card are always in something, always in stories. And so, especially if you're a guy that was in WWE who was, sitting in catering most Mondays, wondering if you're going to be on, it's a neat place to be, I think, to just know that you're going to get to play. And I think Scott and Don have done a magnificent job making Impact a place that talent has fun being at.
And I think that's the selling point right now for Impact is you can tell the talent are having fun. You can tell they're enjoying it. And I've heard nothing but good things from the people I've spoken to about the locker room. And the vibe is like a family. And everyone's just happy, you know, to be part of a good product. And I think that's the best part because TNA for so long had that toxic environment and the product kind of reflected it. So now knowing that Impact's back on track, you've got the good product, you've got great locker room, writing, production. It sounds like it's all coming together again for Impact. And as a fan, we're excited to see where it's going. It's nice to know that Impact is going somewhere because it's got history as an Impact. If you count TNA too, it's one of the only other companies that has that long history, like Ring of Honor, WWE, Impact. They've all got history now, and I think it's something you can play on. Like if you like AEW, for example, you can only go back a year, you know. And with Impact, you just got this history you can play on, and it's nice to know going forwards that, well, it's in good hands. And I think as a fan, I'm just excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, well, I meant what I said earlier. I mean, for me, it is the best product out there at the moment. We get it on a Friday, and we get it on a Friday night in the UK, and it's the highlight. I literally, my Friday night comes around, I've got a few beers, I get a pizza, and I watch Impact. And I don't do that with Raw, I don't do that with SmackDown. You know, I watch Dynamite and NXT later in the week. But Impact is my Friday night. It is the best product on TV at the moment. And do you think there'll be a time where you come back to the UK when the pandemic's over?
I hope so. You know, TNA and Impact has a long history of the UK and fans over there. So I hope so. It used to be a great market for the company, and as you know, who knows when things are going to get back to normal, the new normal, as they like to coin, as they say. You know, so I would love to see us go back to England.
Yeah, I mean, we were only saying that the other day, wasn't we? Like, it would be great to see Impact back in the UK because it's got such a big fan base here. So that'd be great. Is there anything you'd like to plug on behalf of Impact before we start wrapping things up? What have we got coming up? Like, we know we can catch it here on Fridays in the UK.
Yeah, and then our next pay-per-view is Bound for Glory in October. Have they announced that already? I think they've announced that date, haven't they?
If they haven't, I can do it in post-edit. I can.
Yes. Okay, great. So, October 24th, Bound for Glory. We return to pay-per-view, and I'm sure that's going to be, you know, we're going to put on our best efforts there, like we always do, man. My philosophy is try to do the best show possible while everybody has fun. That is it. Those are my things. While everybody's having a good time, how do we put on the best show?
The cool thing is we always do the giveaways on Fight TV for the Impact pay-per-views, and we do giveaways for like the WWE shows, for the AEW shows, GCW. Impact Slammiversary was our most interactive post we've ever done, the giveaway for that. So the hype for Impact right now is there. And I have no doubts when it comes to Bound for Glory and we do the giveaway, that's going to be even more so. So I'm hoping, you know, it's having a positive impact even on the creators like ourselves. When we're mentioning Impact, we're getting some really good interaction with it too. So you've definitely got the attention of the fans, and I'm sure you're going to keep it. Is there anything else you'd like to plug? Do you have any, where can we buy merchandise for Jimmy Jacobs?
No, I don't, you know, look, I got back on social media a week or so ago, just to connect with fans and to sort of share some of my experience. You know, it's really not about wrestling in my life, or it's so trying to,
you've got to ask where we can find your merch.
It's like, you know, disconnect the fans from their money so they can get something they don't need. It's like, you know, I'd rather, instead of looking outwards to to find some satisfaction, I would say, hey, everybody, do me a favor, start looking inwards to try to find that fulfillment and satisfaction. Maybe you don't need a Jimmy Jacobs t-shirt. Maybe you just need to learn that you're enough and you're enough without
this has been a motivational interview, so I'm taking something away from this. So it's definitely been eye-opening.
Well, I'll tell you what then, because you want to like experience and all that. I'll ask one final question. I know you went back to, you said you was wrestling and you got to experience WWE back in 2005. I know you had a match against Eddie Guerrero. Mm-hmm. I just have to ask you, because a lot to this day I miss Eddie Guerrero, watching him. What was it like getting in the ring with Eddie?
It was awesome, man. I was a 21-year-old kid. I had never worked for WWE before, and they came up to me and said, "Hey, it's going to be you and Eddie Guerrero tonight," and it was awesome. And I went up to Eddie and I said, "Hey, I think we're working together tonight." And he says, "Hey, I just want to apologize right now because this match is going to need to be all me, and so I'm sorry for that." But I just want to thank you for your professionalism in doing this for me and doing this favor for me. I really appreciate it. God willing, we'll work together again under better circumstances. But I just right now I want to say thank you. And he was the best in the world probably at that point, and I was just a 21-year-old kid working for the first time in WWE. And he treated me like that. And what he taught me that day was it doesn't matter who you are. You're never above anybody else.
That's such a cool memory to have.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I mean, to this day, you still hear Eddie chants in the arenas, So I had to ask, because I can't watch an Eddie Guerrero match without starting to choke up, because he had that impact on me. So to be able to get in the ring with him must have been a special thing.
He was great, man. He was awesome. Very kind.
And, will we one more thing? Will we get to see Jimmy Jacobs in the ring again?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I think. I don't think it's the last time I've put on tights and fought in a ring, but God willing, I'll be back. Once shows start, running more again, and there's some more opportunity for that. I'll put on my tights.
We'll be watching that. Guaranteed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you was in the Battle Royal at All In. Am I correct?
I was, yes.
Yeah, because we were there. We
were at All In. Yeah.
To Chicago, we were there. So that was incredible to see you there. So we would love to see you back in the ring.
Happy to be a part of that. Happy just to be playing and above ground right now and playing the game of live. It's fun.
Well, we appreciate you taking this time to speak to us. Like I said, it is an absolute honor to get to pick your brain for an hour. It would be great to get you on again down the line and catch up post-pandemic and see what's in store for Impact. Like I said, we're all excited to see where it goes. Hopefully not the last time we'll get you on Ringsiders Wrestling. But otherwise, thank you for joining us today, Jimmy. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.